Being a clove hitch, as you remark, I told him the squire was the most liberal of men. Aye, but you see, returned Bengan, I didn't mean giving me a gate to keep, as a suit of livery clothes and such. That's not my mark, Jim. What I mean is, would he be likely to come down to the tune of, say, £1,000 out of money? That's as good as a man's own already. I'm sure he would, said I. As it is, all hands were to share. And the passage home, he added with a look of great shrewdness. Why, I cried, the squire's a gentleman, and besides, if you got rid of the others, we should want you to help work the vessel home. Ah, said he, so you would, and he seemed very much relieved. Now, I'll tell you what, he went on. So much I'll tell you, and no more. I were in Flint's ship when he buried the treasure, he and 6 along, 6 strong seamen. They was ashore nigh on a week, and us standing off and on in the old walrus. One fine day, up went the signal, and here come Flint by himself in a little boat, and his head done up in a blue scarf. The sun was getting up, and the mortal white he looked about the cutwater. But there he was, you mind, and the 6 all dead and buried. How he done it, not a man aboard us could make out. It was battle, murder, and sudden death. Leastways, him against 6. Billy Bones was the mate. Long John, he was quartermaster. And they asked him where the treasure was. Ah, says he, you can go ashore if you like and stay, he says, but as for the ship, she'll beat up for more by thunder. That's what he said. Well, I was in another ship 3 years back, and we started this island. Boys, said I, here's Flint's treasure. Let's land and find it. The captain was displeased at all, but my messmates were all of a mind and landed. 12 days they looked for it, and every day they had the worst word for me, until one fine morning all hands went aboard. As for you, Benjamin Gunn, says they, here's a musket, they say, and a spade and a pickaxe. You can stay here and find Flint's money for yourself, they says. Well, Jim, 3 years have I been here, and not a bite of Christian diet from that day to this. But now, you look here, look at me. Do I look like a man before the mast? No, says you, nor I weren't. Neither, I says. And with that he winked and pinched me hard. Just you mention them words to your squire, Jim, he went on. Nor he weren't, neither. That's the words. 3 years he were the man of this island, light and dark, fear and rain, and sometimes he would maybe think upon a prayer, says you, and sometimes he would maybe think of his old mother. So be as she's alive, you'll say, but most part of Gunn's time, this is what you'll say, the most part of his time was took up with another matter, and then you'll give him a nip, like I do, and he pinched me again in the most confidential manner. Then he continued, then you'll up, and you'll say this, Gunn is a good man, you'll say, and he puts a precious sight more confidence, a precious sight, mind that, in a gentleman born than these gentlemen of fortune, having been one himself. Well, I said, I don't understand one word that you've been saying, but that neither here nor there, for how am I to get on board? Ah, says he, that's the hitch for sure. Well, that's my boat, and I made it with my 2 hands. I keep her under the white rock. If the worst come to the worst, we might try that after dark. Hi. He broke up. What's that? For just then, although the sun had still an hour or 2 to run, all echoes in the island awoke and bellowed to the thunder of the cannon. "They have begun to fight," I cried. "Follow me." And I began to run towards the anchorage, my terrors all forgotten, while close to my side the marooned man in his goat skin trotted easily and lightly. "Left, left," says he. "Keep to your left hand, mate Jim. Under the trees with you. There's where I killed my first goat. They don't come down here now. They're all mast-headed on them mountains for the fear of Benjamin Gunn. Ah, and there's the cemetery he must have meant. You see the mounds? I come here and prayed, now Sundance, when I thought maybe a Sunday would be about due. It weren't quite a chapel, but it seemed more like a solemn like. And then says you, Ben Gunn was short-handed, not chaplain, for so much as a Bible and a flag, you says. So he kept talking, and as I ran, neither expecting nor receiving any answer, the cannon shot was followed after a considerable interval by a volley of small arms. Another pause, and then, not a quarter of a mile in front of me, I beheld the Union Jack flutter in the air above a wood. The Stockade, Part 4. Narrative continued by Doctor. How the ship was abandoned. 16. It was about 1:30. 3 bells in the sea face, and 2 boats went ashore from the Hispaniola. The captain, the squire, and I were taking matters over in the cabin. Had there been a breath of wind, we should have fallen on the 6 mutineers who were left aboard with us, slipped our cable, and away to sea. But the wind was wanting, and to complete our helplessness, down came a hunter with the news that Jim Hawkins had slipped into our cable and away to sea. But the wind was wanting, and to complete our helplessness, down came Hunter with the news that Jim Hawkins had slipped into a boat and was gone ashore with the rest. It never occurred to us to doubt Jim Hawkins, but we were alarmed for his safety. With the men in the temper they were in, it seemed an even chance if we should see the lad again. We ran on the deck. The pitch was bubbling in the seams. The nasty stench of the place turned me sick. If ever man smelled fever dysentery, it was in that abdominal anchorage. The 6 scoundrels were sitting grumbling under a sail in the forecastle. Ashore we would see the gigs made fast, and a man sitting in each, hard by where the river runs in. One of them was whistling Lily Bolero. Waiting was a strain, and it was decided that Hunter and I should go ashore with a jolly boat in quest for information. The gigs had linked to their right, but Hunter and I pulled straight in the direction of stockage upon the chart. The 2 who were left guarding the boats seemed in a bustle at our appearance. Lily Bolero stopped off, and I could see the pair discussing what they ought to do. They had gone and told Silva. All might have turned out differently, but they had their orders, I suppose, and decided to sit quietly where they were and hark back again to Lily Bolero. There was a slight bend in the coast, and I steered as to put it between us. Then, before we landed, we had thus lost sight of the gigs. I jumped out and came as near running as I durst, with a big silk handkerchief under my head for the coolness sake, and a breech of pistols ready primed for safety. I had not gone 100 yards when I reached the stockage.